This is the Parent Portal Show.
You've seen prices rise from the dinner table to the pump, but Allstate agents are seeing ways to save you money on insurance. From starting a new policy to bundling coverage or even driving safely, Allstate agents know how to maximize your savings. They'll share their knowledge as they help you personalize your coverage. Because when it comes to seeing all the ways to save, Allstate agents do it best.
Mike Hammer has over 35 years as an Austin area Allstate agent. Call 512-343-6994 or visit MikeHammer@allstate.com.
Savings vary, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Hey, Coach, we're back. It's time to maybe jump into a little bit about just some more of these topics that we've been talking about today. To me, there's a lot of education that I could always do with adaptive sports and just trying to understand how it works and how kids and athletes can improve their skill sets and their abilities. Love to get into this topic. You've got some interesting perspective on this, obviously.
Yeah, well, thank you for that, Stephen. And for those of our listeners that don't know, I'm a wheelchair user. Been in a wheelchair for a long time, 40 plus years. I broke my neck in a car accident and wound up becoming a quadriplegic as a result of all that. And, adaptive athletics is something that when you're newly injured or maybe when you're born with disability seems like the furthest thing away from something that's important. You're worried about your health. How are you going to be able to take care of, a loved one? How are you going to be able to, get around? Those things all seem like the most important thing, and they are. They really, really are. But there's a certain amount of space that is in there for adaptive athletics for our kids that have to do things differently. And I think that's the way, there's always been a stigma in my mind, like being disabled. I try not to use that term too much because I'm differently able. There's nothing that if I choose to do it, that I can't do, in my opinion. And
Sure.
So oftentimes it's figuring out, how you do something that's different.
Right.
But, one of the things that I remember before I got injured was the value of sport, whether we were talking about youth football or youth baseball or golf or whatever it was. I remember how much of who I was at that point in my life kind of went through athletics and sports. And for me, it was really one of those moments when I got injured that I didn't think about, didn't care about. I was just trying to hang on,
Right.
And for the first, I would say 6 to 7 years of being in a chair, the last thing I wanted to do was go try and figure out a sport until someone came to me. And I'll tell you the quick story of it is that I didn't know anybody in a wheelchair. Small town
Right.
Texas, Friday
Right.
night lights. There's not, a group of guys in wheelchair, the wheelchair mafia, hanging out somewhere that, you immediately get jumped into.
Right.
It's you often are alone. And
Right.
so the same was true back then. And so it took a while to figure out our community, my new community. And, every now and then I'd go to a mall or go to a theater and I'd see somebody else in a wheelchair and you don't even know how to talk to each other, because there's, the assumption is that if you're in a wheelchair, you're just like somebody else in a wheelchair. That's a bad perception because there's so much diversity in people in chairs, that it's just like not being in a chair.
Sure.
And so end of day is I got approached by somebody and said, "Hey, would you like to come try this sport?" And I was, "What are you talking about?" Because I'd never even seen somebody in wheelchairs doing a sport. And they described it to me, and I went out, and it was wheelchair rugby. And it immediately became an obsession, a passion, and an identity that I had lost.
Hmm.
And for me, adaptive athletics suddenly gave me purpose that I was searching for in those moments. And along the way, what I've learned on this 40-year journey is that sport isn't just for somebody that's able-bodied. Sport is for everyone, and in adaptive sport, it takes on such a bigger meaning because it's so many times we're excluded and not included
Yep.
that the adaptive sport component of recovery, rehabilitation, and just integration into our society is such an important thing.
Hmm. Yeah, it absolutely, Coach. And your story started pretty young, right? I mean, you were just out of high school. Is that kind of
I
how
was
that?
still in high school.
Still in high school. Okay.
Broke my neck on Christmas night being stupid, and didn't even finish my high school career with my class
Mhm.
because I was paralyzed.
Yeah.
And so it's been an incredible journey that I've been on, and I've been able to see both sides of the coin, if you will. And it is so vital, and it is a passion of mine because I think I use a little moniker when we coached with wheelchair rugby. We change people's lives one hit at a time because it's a full contact sport, right?
Yeah.
And people see that, and they're the first time they see a bunch of people in chairs run into one another, they're either horrified
Right.
that we're hurting each other or there's something wrong with us, or they get it and they like, wow, this is sport. And if I do my job right as a coach, you don't see the chair as a way that somebody's confined to a wheelchair. You see the chair as a way that somebody's able to play sport. And that's a powerful, powerful statement. And so many of our things that we go through on a day-to-day life and living in a chair, you just don't experience till you're either later in life or maybe you don't, and you're very fortunate. But to that point is like I really wish I would have found it earlier,
Hmm.
almost, because it helps with like I said, recovery, rehabilitation, and integration back into our world. And if you look at like our schools, there's Title IX that came about, but there's been very, very little that has happened on a national level to 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 bring about that inclusion component of it. It's happening. It's not happening fast enough. If you're sitting in a wheelchair and you're going to middle school and you want to go out and compete with somebody, but again, for that group, um, there was nothing when I was there. There was zero. There was no, hey, we have a community sports team that does that adaptive athletics, because there wasn't anybody in wheelchairs hanging out. The occasional person you saw at the mall, the person that you heard about that lived on the other side of town, that was it.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to form a team or build a community when everybody was just staying inside. And once I got into that community, I realized how robust it really is, and how it's such a benefit, because it's much more than just when your kid is in high school now,
Right.
and I always tell my kiddo, look, if you really want a good answer to something, don't go ask a 14-year-old. Ask a parent, right? The
Right.
parent's going to have a wealth of experience and knowledge that they can help you with, as opposed to a 14-year-old who thinks they know everything, and
Yeah.
it's in my community, in the adaptive community, when nobody was coming out and trying these things out, there were no resources for like the resources for like, just how do you do it, how do you get by with your everyday life, because you actually reinvent the wheel every day.
Right.
Because you're like, you just don't have that community that you can go, hey, Steven, how do you do this? And you know what? Adaptive athletics allows that to happen. One of the cutest stories I ever experienced personally was it used to take me 30 minutes to tie my shoes. And I was bound and determined I was going to do it every day. You know, it was
Right.
like, nobody's going to tell me I can't do this because I'm going to do this. And I went to my first couple of practices and um, I'm one of my shoes came off. And so I'm over there tying it. And I mean, like the whole group of athletes are looking at me and going, what are you doing? And I said, I'm tying my shoe. And they go, it's taking you 30 minutes to do this. And they said, just tie it once and put it on. It's not like you're getting up and walking away. And I was like, wow. I mean, what a moment, for me, not just because of the sports side, but like, wow, I never got that when I was in
Yeah.
rehab, and it just rang clear in that moment that this is something that goes beyond athletics, but I would have never got to had I not been in adaptive athletics.
Right.
And it becomes a supportive community that helps us learn to get by. And it's huge. And I tell the story also of one of my teammates back in the day that later became one of our athletes on USA is a guy down in Houston. His name's Steve Curley, and
Okay.
he's paying it forward right now. And Steve was recently featured because he got involved with the State Department and started helping adaptive athletics in India. And there was a doctor that came over and worked with the Tier Herman Memorial community, and said, I've never seen anything like wheelchair athletics in India because of what I was describing earlier. People didn't come out, and when people got hurt, they basically stayed home or they passed. And Steve heard this and got with this doctor and said, I've got to make a difference. And so he's had 2 trips to India in the past year where he's gone over and taught adaptive athletics, in particular wheelchair rugby,
Mm.
to the wheelchair community, in particular quadriplegics.
Wow.
And to hear him talk about, like, you go in, and I've been in these communities in South America and in Europe, where you go in, they have no resources. They don't
Yeah.
have competition chairs. They don't have money to be able to get even to practice sometimes. And so those are the things that are preventing. But the one thing they do have is passion and heart and desire
Mm.
to be able to come out and learn. And so once you touch them, they were out there playing in their everyday chairs. Now that might sound like, okay, what does that mean? Well, just think of it this way: you have one pair of dress shoes,
Right.
right? And you only wear them when you go to church on Sunday,
Right.
right? So just think that's your best shoes, and that you're having to wear them every day, working in the mud, playing sports, everything else. You are very much, you try to take care of those things. Well,
Sure.
if these guys break their everyday chairs, there's nothing left. There's not like, oh,
Yeah.
I'll go get another pair of shoes.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that for them. And so they were out because sport, they were out in their everyday chairs slamming into one another, probably breaking them, just like they did when we were down in South America. They were breaking their chairs. And we literally were like, okay, you guys have got to stop. We've got to figure out a way to make this better. And I mean, but what they did see was how that connection in adaptive sport was able to help them reclaim their lives.
Sure.
And I mean, what a message. You turn on those 30 for 30 moments, you turn on the ESPN where they're pulling at your heartstrings, and it doesn't even come close
Yeah.
to some of these stories that you see, because they just weren't able to get out of their situation, and because of adaptive sport they were able to do it and experience life bigger and better than they ever have. And to Steve Curley's point, he is now in the middle of fundraising, to try and take chairs to India, so they're not playing in their everyday chairs, so that they're experiencing the true sport from an even better angle.
Yeah. Coach, I heard you say, learn from someone who has been there and has wisdom and has that ability to help. Uh, you know, you've there's so much here. There's so much that we're talking about, and to your point, it's not just about someone being a quadriplegic. It's someone who's not in a situation where things are done the way that most of us is normal, and it's understanding that, hey, it may not be the normal way for you, but doing it differently doesn't make it unnormal. It just makes it different, and being adaptive into those situations. I just love that kind of excitement that you seem to have about, uh, uh, looking at doing, you've talked about your past a lot, and I've had the pleasure of listening to it. And you always have such an excitement of the path that you've gone down. And to be able to share that with others who may have that same kind of need to hear how we used to do it wasn't the way you guys do it today. That to me is huge.
It is, and you use the word normal, and that's such a great word to kind of build on, because what's normal for you may not be normal for me.
Right.
But the word that goes right along normal is different.
Mm.
And when we're talking about, I think we've maybe all seen the story of the athlete that was a pitcher in baseball, and he was born with disability and only had an arm that went down to his elbow,
Sure.
right? And he could throw the ball like nobody's business, right? And so if you compared him to somebody else with both arms, you would say that's not normal, right?
Yeah.
It's different. But was he able to accomplish what the task was? Yes.
Right.
And from that task, was he able to enjoy sport? Yes. And that's the part that I get jacked up about, that I get excited about, is because, I've been that person that was like, there's nothing for me. There's not, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's so many of those people. And when they realize that there is something for you,
Yeah.
whether you have one arm or no arms or whatever the situation, and you're able to have a better quality of life and have a better outlook on life, because you're part of sport, you're part of community. That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And man, we talk about, our name of our show is the Parent Portal Show. It doesn't just affect adaptive sport, doesn't just affect the kid. It
Right.
does. It gives them so much of their life back. But there is so much collateral damage that happens when somebody has acquired a disability.
Sure.
It doesn't affect one, it affects the sum. It affects everybody in your community, because it takes a village to be
Yeah.
able to put it back together. And so many times what you see is that you'll see a parent that maybe has to stop working to be able to take care of a kid. You'll see a family that, has to change the way they do things because, that one person. So it affects everybody, the whole family, the parents. And so when parents see their kids that have been told what they can't do, shown what they can do, and get that back for them, or maybe get that for them, my gosh, the smiles on the athletes, the people playing the sport, are huge.
Yeah.
they're huge. But if you just look on the sidelines and usually on the front row with the cameras, their parents are over the moon. They have bigger smiles. They have, and it's almost like sighs of relief. You can hear the exhale of parents going normal.
Yeah. No, that's such a great point, Coach. And you really caught me off guard when you said it affects other people's lives too. And it does. I mean, those parents are just as impacted by that situation as the kid is. And granted, the kid's living it, but the parents are certainly living it just as much. And to have that passion and to give those players, those athletes, the chance to do all they can do, and families to do all that they can do, and to I love the idea of it. Uh, Finding new cultures and finding new places to be a part of. To me, that's just so exciting. And Steve talks about building a brighter future for in Nepal right now. He's looking for wheelchairs. Coach, we're going to make sure and post this to our website and our YouTube videos so that people can click on it and certainly help if they so choose to do. But it's such an exciting way to take what would be viewed as a handicap and turning it into, in this case, leveraging some of the resources and skills and knowledge and wisdom that should be shared with others. And I'm very excited about the story, and I'm hoping that we can help lean into it a little bit. And it's all about community, right? It's all about the Parent Portal Show is about community, and community is what helps make these things move forward. We're a big. I've been very blessed to be around the Miracle League and to see the smiles and the faces and and it's not just the athletes. When they recruit high school kids to be a part of that program, and we've had the blessing of being a part of the Miracle League at times, and it's the same kind of excitement and joy that comes out of that storyline.
It really is, and we see this a lot, and in our elementary kids that come out in the normal world, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
It's always parent driven. Parents are the coaches.
Mm.
Parents are the people that umpire and everything else. It is absolutely 1,000,000% the same in the adaptive world. There's not some, different referee or different
Right.
coach that's going to come along. It's the moms, it's the dads, the brothers, the sisters, that are running the clock, that are the equipment manager, or maybe, maybe it's the person that's coaching. So many of even our USA athletes, have very strong family ties to the team, and it's just like you see uh Jimbo Fisher's son coaching alongside him. It's no different.
Yeah.
And it's because you as a parent want to be connected to your child, and you want to see them succeed. And if I have to learn how to weld to be able to be a part of that, okay, let's go learn how to weld so we can put your chair back together after you break it.
Amen.
That's the kind of stuff that we see in our community, which is no different than any other community. And it is such a incredible thing to be a part of, and what an underground thing that nobody knows exists, and only probably in the past decade and a half has really been shed a little bit of light on.
Very heartwarming story, Coach. Thanks for bringing it to us this morning.
Hey, we all have hectic lives, and buying or selling a home can just make things even more of a chaotic mess. If you are moving to the Austin area, what would you need to get comfortable with that decision? Even if you lived in town and you needed to purchase or sell a home, how would you want to be treated? Chris Ott with the Ott Group of Keller Williams Realty has been a longtime friend and was the guy who I worked with to find the perfect property solution for me. I wanted a professional with knowledge of the Austin area to help me with my home search, navigate the paperwork, and negotiate on my behalf. And Chris Ott was the right agent for the job. Chris, his business partner, Teresa Ott Bousseau, and their team of 5 agents have helped thousands of people move to and from the Austin area. The Ott family is celebrating over 35 years in business in Austin and plan to provide their real estate services for many more years to come. Their mantra is, your move matters, and that is what they focus on. Just go to their website at theottgroup.com and get connected with the Austin real estate team dedicated to taking care of you. That's THEOTT group.com. You can also call 512-222-6881 or email them at info@theottgroup.com to get connected with them today. Tell them that Stephen with the Parent Portal Show sent you, and start working with a professional who is dedicated to your next move.